The show is on the road in Lincoln, fresh from Nebraska football practice and together at last. Hot takes coming next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down. They've been down for a while. The world stops sporting like we want it to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Afternoon, morning, whenever you're listening to this. We apologize for being a little late this morning, but we figured, I'm Connor Happer, by the way, from 1620 The Zone in Omaha. It's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. We're together. We're in the same place, so this will be fun. We got a chance to watch Nebraska football practice for a little bit this morning, do some warm-ups and some drills. And we have observations. We have thoughts coming out. So we're just going to basically open up our notebooks to you guys, and we'll dive through some things that we saw today. Mitch, it was my first time going to a practice in like a couple years.
First time seeing Dylan Raiola in person?
First time seeing Dylan Raiola like in a football environment in person.
What'd you think? Like he's right off the bat.
He's like Nebraska's quarterbacks in general are big. Like they have big guys. He has big legs. Like obviously, Heinrich Harburg is a big guy too. That was the first thing that jumped out to me. I don't know that that's, breaking news to anybody.
He's 6'3", 230. So he looks like a big. He doesn't look like a 19-year-old.
I think the other thing is, with Raiola, if we're doing that right off the top, he's very in control. He's barking at people to tell them where to go, to get out of the drill, to get back in the drill. It seemed to me, you don't want to go too far with this, but like he's going to be the starting quarterback. It seemed to me that he had pretty complete control over, the people around him and some really good command of his offense and the people around him.
Since we're going that way,
yeah,
I will say after the first period that we saw, when the quarterbacks moved inside, they were on the grass out on the fields in the shadow of the new Osborne complex. And then they went inside toward the end of the 25 minutes that we got. And Dylan was with Isaiah Nair and Jamal Banks, and then Thomas Fedoni came up.
Yep.
So like kind of the three alpha males as far as the pass catchers on the offensive side. They just gravitate to Dylan. I don't know that he sought them out and wanted to hang with those guys as they were getting ready for the next drill to start. And the other quarterbacks eventually came over in the group and they started throwing to some receivers. But you could just see like a chemistry forming, or a chemistry that's already formed, a kinship between the guy who is the number one quarterback with the top receiver.
It takes Nebraska's had no shortage of playing freshman quarterbacks before.
Mm-hmm.
And, usually, and he's been here for a spring, Raiola has. So usually that can take some time. It could take some time. And especially we're talking about older guys. Now with Banks and Nair, they came in at the same time as Dylan Raiola did. So there's the advantage that they have in that category. They're all kind of on the same plane. But Nebraska's had quarterbacks who, I don't know, were just a little bit timid. We're afraid to kind of take control right out of the gate. And he's grabbed it. The leadership stuff is something that has been talked about. It was good to see it on display today.
What'd you think of Jalen Gramstad?
He's small. He's really small. Like you could see that guy has NAIA Player of the Year written all over him, right? Mm-hmm. Like you could see why that was a thing. So there's a couple other guys in that room too. And so the quarterback room, is defined by who you have on the top. And, Dylan Raiola is pretty much in complete control of that.
Right. This was my first chance really getting to watch Bodie Sukup. He's the now. There's the headline right there for the pod. Yes. Yeah. No, but Bodie Sukup is more than just like your normal walk-on true freshman. He's one of only about 3 or 4 walk-on true freshmen who are in camp right now in the 120. And you can see why. I think in a different year where Danny Kalin wasn't at Bellevue West and where Dylan Raiola wasn't out there looming as the number one quarterback in the country, Nebraska would have looked hard at Bodie Suka as potentially a scholarship quarterback. He threw for a ton of yards at Blair High School, and he has a live arm. That's the thing about all 5 quarterbacks in camp. There's nobody who doesn't have a strong arm. Even Gramstad, that was the thing that stuck out to me about him watching him at the post-grad camp this summer in June was immediately it's like, all right, this guy has zip on the ball. So who is that? And why do I not have any idea? Have I never heard the name before?
They're really like, just going through drills. They're really intentional about the way that they do stuff too. And so they start off right away with the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and some tight ends as well. Like they are repping the screen game. They are repping the short screens, like the tunnel screens and the bubbles and all that stuff. Like they look like they're doing that without even thinking about it, which is huge. I mean, I don't know. You guys have watched Nebraska football for as long as we have. I mean, Nebraska hasn't had a good screen game in a long time. And so I think that was one of the things right out of the gate, their intentionality of the way that they do things. And the quarterbacks are in control of that entire thing. It's a really good leadership structure. And then they're intentional about the way they do stuff.
Well, I think the issue or one of the issues with Heinrich Harburg last year was that he struggled to look off his first read. And the screen, unless it's just a called screen, is rarely going to be your first read. A lot of times it's a check down to a back when you get the back of the ball in a screen kind of situation. Or even just throwing those touch passes was a problem at times for Heinrich last year. Dylan has the ability to go through his reads quickly and get the ball.
And he's calm.
Ramir Johnson's the one in the few minutes of practice that we saw today where that was part of their regimen, going through an 11-man offensive set where he was out there and he was the one who caught most of the balls in the I'm throwing to the back kind of a situation. Ramir was with the ones and so was Gabe Irvin. And it looked today like Emmett Johnson was taking more of his reps with Heinrich's group in the twos. It was 20 minutes of practice, not to read anything into what's going on there as
of lights
as the lights go out on us.
By the way, thanks to the J School, I think they were on a motion deal here, but thanks to the J School and Rick Alloway for having us out here, giving us a room in between times. Yeah, I mean, the running backs were something that I kind of gravitated to. I think big picture, like I said, I haven't been to a practice in a while. The one thing that I noticed, and I guess I haven't been to a practice probably since the Scott Frost era, there's no music. There's no music. And there's a lot, like I said, going back to the intentionality part, it just seems like there's a lot of like focus and organization of like every minute seems to be accounted for. And we only got 20 or 30, but like every minute kind of seems to be like, all right, they have a guy over the loudspeaker directing people where to go. Like nothing, no stone is left unturned on details. Like, and I think that's pretty emblematic of Matt Rule in the program.
And you see that the support staffers who are out there at practice,
there's so many.
There are a lot, and they all have something to do.
Yeah.
There's not anybody who works for Matt Rule that's standing around just okay, my job takes a break for 2 hours now when practice starts. There's none of that. They have things to do. Like Kira Mayo, who is like Rule's chief administrative assistant. She's on a phone that she's using like a walkie-talkie, like talking to somebody about, hey, when this period is over, you need to have this in place here. And I saw Kristen Coggin, the director of nutrition, and Mitch Cholowinski, the sports science coordinator, standing together in an end zone, talking strategy and specifics about stuff that was happening. And, they're always in communication, even during practice, because they're not monitoring the guys in their as the lights come back on.
We're back.
They're not monitoring the guys' movements in real time, but that's all stuff they're going to look at as soon as the practice is over. So, all right, who's on the slide? Who needs more nutrition? Who needs a little bit of rest? It's all just such a scientific operation. It's amazing to just see a little bit of it.
It is. There's so many people involved with what they do. It's frankly amazing. In fact, I would say the guy, talking about people with jobs to do. And, if there's anybody who has less stuff to do and who's less like, it's Matt Rule.
I know you're going to say that.
It's Matt Rule,
Yeah.
who was, kind of standing around and engaged in some things, would bump around from position group to position group. He came over to me at one point, and, we always talk about the Royals in this podcast. And he said, "It's a pretty sweet hat."
Did he?
He said, apparently he's got some, Royals blood in him, which is really great. He's a Mets, so somebody asked him, like, who'd you root for in the 2015 World Series? And he was like, well, I rooted for the Mets. I'm all Mets all the way. But he's like, he's got some Kansas City in him. He's like, he asked me if he wanted to trade hats. And I was like, well, no, I want to keep this hat.
We're going to have to get to the bottom of this and find out more about whether Matt Rule is just pandering
Probably.
To the locals who, more Royals fans per capita here than just about anywhere else.
He
outside.
can feel the strength of Bobby Witt Jr. I get it. Like it's a tractor beam. I understand.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we're going to come back after the break. We're going to talk about the offensive line. I went straight there when practice started today to see what was going on, specifically at offensive tackle in the wake of this injury to Teddy Prohaska early this week.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about injuries and who was missing from the workout today, what exactly was going on with players who were riding the bike instead of out there at the workout. So that is next. Remember to follow us on Twitter at LockedOnNEB. Subscribe. Check us out on Apple and Spotify, the listening platforms. If you're watching today on YouTube, and if you're listening to us, go check us out on YouTube. You can also email the show at lockedonneb@gmail.com. We're coming back right after this.
All right, it's Happer here for the FanDuel Sportsbook, and we love sports. They're getting ready to gear back up. But in the meantime, while there's less going on, you have the FanDuel Sportsbook still there for you. Even when the sports stop sportsing like you want them to, FanDuel lets you keep them going. Right now, new customers to the FanDuel Sportsbook get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So hop on there, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Find a bet that you like, place a $5 wager, and if you win it, it's $150 in bonus bets that you can use wherever you'd like. Then you can get a little creative with those bonus bets. Once again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet right now. That is with our friends from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, Mitch Sherman here for a new sponsor of the pod. Big news.
This is exciting
to announce today. We're unveiling an exciting announcement. Home Field will be the exclusive apparel sponsor of the Locked On Nebraska podcast all football season long. I want to start this by introducing the Can't Miss Kickoff campaign, which is all about gearing up fans for the upcoming football season. First of all, Home Field is a premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis. They're focused on creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs, including Nebraska, affiliated with more than 180 colleges. So if you're a fan of a university, a college, probably Nebraska, if you're listening to this podcast, Home Field has got it. The Can't Miss campaign is the thing to pay attention to right now because it delivers everything that a fan needs for the football season. You can get the football box. That's coaches' jackets, bomber jackets, and more. The football box is definitely something that you want, Nebraska fans. It contains 3 never-before-seen Nebraska items not available anywhere else. Gear for the entire season. And then the Platinum VIP box adds a new hat or a ringer, a VIP koozie, a 2024 Platinum Pass that gets you 20% off and early access so you can get in before those boxes sell out. And they're on sale right now. It starts today, August 9th, this Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time. So if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, get on there right now at homefieldapparel.com. These boxes will sell out. I've tried Home Field. It's great. Connor?
Here's the thing, man. The Home Field is like, if you've seen their shirts, I'm sure you have, and all the other stuff they have at Home Field. It's made by college football fans like you, real college football sickos. Mm-hmm. So go check out the Nebraska stuff, the Nebraska box. It's fantastic. And that's what you really get when you buy from Home Field, when you get a shirt from Home Field, when you get apparel from Home Field. You get people who care about college football, and they know the little intricacies of college football. That's what you want, and that's what you get with Home Field. It's great. I couldn't recommend it enough.
So thank you for supporting the Locked On Nebraska pod by supporting Home Field. Check out all of the Husker apparel and special items at homefieldapparel.com. Okay, welcome back. Connor Happer.
We're back.
1620 The Zone.
I still have the same hat, by the way.
Is with me. Matt Rule has not stolen the hat.
No hat trades.
I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. As you mentioned in the first segment, we are here at the UNL College of Journalism and Mass Communications. They are hosting our pod today. So thanks. We're in this well lit for the moment.
I did many college radio shows from this very room. From this very room, from that room over there. Very weird.
So this very building did not exist when I was in college at the University of Nebraska. Like, it may have existed in like some other form, but the journalism school was right next to Memorial Stadium. And we heard from Rick on the way up here as he set us up that this building opened in 2001.
Yeah.
So there I go, dating myself yet again.
Avery Hall, though, was that was the former home of the J School.
Yeah.
It's like now a science or math building or something.
It may have been condemned at one point. They probably did some refurbishments, and it's back open, and somebody's in there studying. But I don't know if
not journalism students.
No, definitely not. And I mean, I think that like Trev Albert's plan, which is now not Troy Dannon's plan
on hold
to demolish the Stout Stadium, might have actually been the demise.
No.
Avery Hall might have met its demise. I mean, could you imagine if you bring down the South Stadium, what that would have meant for Avery Hall? There's no way that anything was going on in Avery Hall for several years. So it has new life thanks to Troy Dannon. But the journalism students are way over here on the other side of campus at Anderson Hall, where we are today. And thanks again to them for letting us come in here and do our show. All right. So I promised after the break, or before the break, that after the break, we would talk about the Nebraska offensive line. That's where my eyes went at the beginning of this practice this morning, Connor. I went out and I wanted to see what was going on at left tackle. And the first thing I saw was good news that Turner Corcoran was in uniform. Nebraska's left tackle. He's the starting left tackle,
no doubt,
with Teddy Prohaska being out with the ACL that he suffered on Monday. So good news. Turner Corcoran is in uniform. He's dressed. He's got a helmet on. He's got his shoes on.
He's mildly practicing.
Yeah,
I think at this point
he did not do the full line drills,
but he didn't have a yellow jersey. He didn't have a non-contact jersey. So
the question then is, who's playing left tackle when Turner Corcoran is in the back and they're doing an actual 5-man offensive line drill?
Drum roll, please. Today's answer is
it was Gunnar Gatula. The redshirt freshman out of Lincoln Southeast. He's playing left tackle. Of course, you still have Bryce Benhart over at right tackle. You got Mazuka at right guard, Justin Evans at left guard, and Ben Scott in the center. So things really haven't changed that much, except for that one kind of important position, left tackle. Some other guys I noticed at tackle, Brock Knutson, they're working there. He's the redshirt freshman out of Western Nebraska. Tyler Kanak is going back and forth between guard and tackle. Jacob Hood, big guy, transfer from Georgia who joined the program a year ago and has dealt with some injuries. He was in there and doing fine at a tackle spot. And then Grant Bricks. So they are officially getting Grant Bricks ready.
Yeah.
He's learning. A couple moments in like a drill that they did out on the grass where Grant took a shot from somebody and went down. Like he's still I think understanding the speed of things.
Well, it's like his sixth practice?
Yeah, he looks like a true freshman out there. Right, right. He's put on weight and his size is fine, but I saw him on the side working with Bryce Benhart one-on-one. Like Bryce is the guy who started 41 games at the tackle spot, and Bricks is backing up, or he may not be the number one backup, but today without Corcoran, he was the number 2 right tackle. Bricks was. And Bryce is working with him a lot one-on-one. It's
really difficult for a freshman, like I said, in his 6th practice to come in and just be thrown into really any meaningful reps whatsoever. So like from a development perspective, you hope that doesn't like stunt anything, but I think you're right. It feels like they're trying to kind of elevate him a little bit out of necessity at this point, which is ultimately not what you want, but he's a talented guy. And so usually by the third or fourth week of camp, or maybe the second or third week of the season, those guys will kind of start to come around, and maybe you could consider putting them in a game if things get dire at that point. But I think that's kind of where we're at tackle right now. We talked about it the other day on the show. It's pretty thin, and they're trying to find answers for fourth tackles and fifth tackles at this point.
So if you guys riding the bike, a few guys who weren't out there doing all of the work at practice, and some yellow jerseys. So we saw Tristan Alvano. He's back on the 120, or they've added him to the 120. They had 2 spots that opened back up here in the last 4 or 5 days, with Roger Gradney, the true freshman linebacker / DB, going down in practice last Saturday night, and then Prohaska's spot. It looks like Barrett Liebentritt and Tristan Alvano took those 2 spots. Barrett Liebentritt, the fullback, Notre Dame transfer in the program last year, Omaha Skutt grad. He was there in uniform. He didn't start camp on the 120 because of an injury. And then Alvano, Nebraska's returning starter at kicker, is out there, and he was in a yellow jersey, although I don't know really what that means for a kicker, because nobody's running into a kicker at any point in camp.
I think at this point he's got pretty much the full load of kicking.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of working him back into it. Now, he's off on the side, like you said, kicking by himself. You weren't going to touch the kicker anyway. So right. I think he's pretty much there from what it sounds like.
So there was a point where Jalen Lloyd and Prince Will Umanmielen were also riding bikes. Those guys were taking it easy last Saturday, and they're still kind of easing them back in. Although Jalen was working with the receivers in some of those drills, and he also was not in a yellow jersey. So I think it's more just getting him stretched out. And he was on that bike because he had some tightness last weekend, and they want to prevent that from being an issue as they go through the month of August. Preston Taumua, true freshman out of Hawaii, offensive lineman, not going to be a factor in playing time this year, but he was in a yellow jersey on a bike. And Bly Hill was over there too. Not certain if he's on the 120, but it kind of looked like they may have put him on it because
he's getting close.
Yeah, he was in a jersey. He was moving around. And it's the first time I've really taken a close look at Bly Hill, because it was late in spring when he started to get mentioned as the guy who had won the job at corner opposite Tommy Hill. Bly Hill's an athlete.
Oh, he's put together. That was definitely the thing that jumped off the page to me too. But yeah, he's in a yellow jersey right now. But it looked like, that track, as far as his injury is concerned, is going well. Certainly as well as they could have hoped, after it looked like he was going to be gone for the season during the spring game. So yeah, those were the yellow jersey guys. Nothing crazy, I don't think, to report on that side of things. They, outside of the Prohaska injury, we're only a week into camp here, but they've been able to stay relatively healthy so far. And I think there's a lot of load management going on too.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing.
One thing I noticed about, and this is maybe not like the most important thing in camp, but just an observation I made today, was that Liebentritt was standing around with the tight ends. AJ Rollins, who's been a defensive end for the last year or so, was wearing a white jersey today.
He is a tight end again.
Yeah.
They moved him just recently over the last 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So he's flipped back and forth a couple of times. The kid out of Creighton Prep, he's moved back and forth now, but he is back at tight end.
Yeah. That's what he was playing today. So Liebentritt was with those guys. At one point, he was standing between Rollins and Thomas Fedoni, and the running backs were on a different field with E.J. Barthel, Ron Brown, longtime assistant coach who's working with the fullbacks and the return specialists, was over on that field. So I'm not sure. I think it means basically that the fullbacks don't have all that much of a spot in the Dylan Raiola Nebraska offense.
You got to group them in with somebody else, just for organizational purposes, I think, and that's what they're doing.
If that's the way that this thing goes all season, it's unfortunate for Barrett Liebentritt, because he left Notre Dame for this reason, because the fullback just wasn't a part of the offense, and he came to Nebraska in a pro-style system and got to play fullback last year. While dealing with some injuries.
All right. A couple more thoughts on the other side. I got a few here that we can get to as we lose the lights again, as we round things out on the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
All right. It's coming up on football season. Mitch Sherman here for Game Time. The pennant races in Major League Baseball are in full swing. Royals Cardinals this weekend in Kansas City? Want to get down there for just a quick game? I know, Connor. I know with the newborn, that's probably right at the top of your list. Yeah.
But I would use probably Game Time, if I did. Last minute stuff right there.
If you're going to do it, if you want to get to a Major League Baseball game this August, September, October, Game Time is your spot. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. Game Time makes getting tickets easier and faster. Prices go down on the app the closer you get to first pitch. So whatever you've got in your plans this summer or early fall, whether it's a concert, a Major League Baseball game, a college football game that's a hot ticket. There's one on September 7th, which is now less than a month away, that I believe is a hot ticket here from what I understand. Indeed. Over at Memorial Stadium. You want to get tickets to there, check it out on Game Time. You can see flash deals. You can look at views from your seat, customize your spot in the stadium, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's gametime.co. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, back here for the final segment. Mitch Sherman and Connor Happer with you. Thanks for being patient with us here on a Friday.
I'm going to turn the lights on.
Yeah, get the lights back on. A few things. Let's go through our notebooks a little bit more and just a couple, odds and ends here. So we've talked about kind of the big picture stuff. I watched. I wanted to see who was back fielding punts.
Yeah,
and punt returns. So here's the names I came up with. Let's double check these. Ja'Cory Barney.
Saw him.
Isaiah Garcia Castaneda.
Yep.
Emmett Johnson.
Yep.
And Sire Wright.
Yeah. Very good. Those are the four that I wrote down too. So.
Yeah. So, you're not going to use 4 punt returners in a season, but those, I don't think they have that rule specifically carved out for anybody at this point. It looked like Barney was toward the top of the group, if not at the top of the group. So that's kind of an interesting thing to get him involved a little bit this year. Like I said, I don't think that job is done right now, but interesting to see the guys who are back there fielding punts.
I think IGC is maybe the guy they feel best about as a punt returner because of his experience. He's a 5th-year senior in the program, where Ja'Cory Barney is a true freshman. Returning punts is a different kind of pressure than returning kickoffs, and they definitely like Barney returning kickoffs. We saw him take one back in the spring game. It should have been a kickoff return for a touchdown, but he thought the kicker was on his team and was tackled by I believe it was Alvano.
It was Alvano, yeah.
So won't do that. That will not happen in a game this fall. We hope he won't get mistaking the kicker for his teammate. But yeah, IGC is the guy I would expect to see out there week 1 returning punts, and maybe Sire Wright. That's interesting. That's interesting for sure. The USC transfer,
especially if they feel good about Bly Hill being back at corner. I don't know what the track looks like for him, but if they feel like he can go week 1, which maybe we'll hear more on that from Matt Rule today, but if they feel like he can go, then that just opens up Sire Wright to do kind of other things. They're trying to get him involved somehow. He's obviously a really good athlete. Yeah. I got a couple more here, Mitch. Physically, so we talked about Banks and Nair earlier.
Did you get to see Keanu Davis?
I didn't get to see the next Ndamukong Suh. I didn't look at the defensive line that much. They were kind of like far away from me at whatever point I was trying to find them.
Okay.
But Banks
come back.
So Banks and Nair, Nair is really, physically put together. And he is probably an inch or two taller than Jamal Banks from what I saw. They have Banks listed at 6'4". I don't think he's 6'4". That doesn't make him a worse player. I just don't think he's 6'4". I think he's legit 6'3", maybe a hair over that. Yeah, from seeing him in person. Nair's an inch taller,
and Nair might be like 6'4.5".
Yeah, those are two guys, and we mentioned them, really getting in there with Raiola earlier. Like that. If you want to, people are asking questions about like, hey, why is this wide receiver room different? Why do you feel good about the offense this year? Like those 3 new guys right there, obviously Raiola, Banks, and Nair, changes like the whole picture on offense if those guys can be productive.
Something that I noticed was Matt Davison at practice.
A lot of 1890 guys. Yeah.
An 1890 presence at practice, which the last time I watched a practice at Nebraska, that was not the case. And that would have been in the spring, going back to last fall. Trev Alberts, for reasons that I think made a lot of sense to him, he kept the collective kind of at arm's length when it came to just its involvement in the everyday operations of the program. When the players had things to talk about with the collective, whether it was in the recruiting process or in the retention process, they could go to the office of 1890, which is just, steps away from Memorial Stadium. Now you see more of a presence with the collective actually at an event like today.
They're in the circle now, for sure.
Yeah.
That is definitely a Dannon thing. And that is much, much different. I mean, there was a pretty big presence too. There's probably 5 or 6 1890 guys over in the corner. Okay, I have one more. David Huffkin.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see him today.
He's a giant. He
I saw him Saturday.
He is a man-child. I mean, he's obviously older as a true freshman, and he looks that way. Like he looks like a, what is he, 22? Yeah. He looks like a 22-year-old for sure. He's bigger than just about everybody else. Obviously, they got to figure out the football stuff with him, but there's definitely something there. If we're talking about people, like Keona Davis, who just really jump off the page to you with their size and, potential athleticism.
Yeah.
David Huffkin is he is one of those guys for sure.
I don't know where they're going to find reps for him this year.
Probably not.
As a pass rusher, when you've got Jamari Butler and Cam Lenhart and James Williams, seasoned players who've been in the program for, in Butler's case, many years, and in the other two 1 year. And then the fact they've been playing football for a lot longer than David Huffkin. Even as a 22-year-old, he's so inexperienced, but it's a guy that you have to be excited about down the road, beyond this season. And maybe they find a package for him in the same way that they did Williams last year, and he plays in 4 games. I mean, he's going to be 26 at some point and still playing college football if he doesn't just go ahead and burn that red shirt this
theoretically,
year. Yeah, you don't need it. You don't necessarily need to red shirt that guy, but it may just happen because of the depth situation. On the way out of here, 2 names that I want to mention. Ishmael Smith-Flores, playing linebacker, looks like a dude.
Yep.
He's been a tight end in this program, 2nd-year player. I'm like, who is that 81 over there playing linebacker? Because that's not a number for the linebacker. He's going to probably have to get a new number if he sticks at linebacker, but he matches up physically very well within that group. And then Mekhi Nelson, wearing number 35 with the running backs. This is the kid who was the reclassified class of 2024 freshman, was supposed to come out next year out of prep school in Connecticut. We've talked about him on this pod periodically. Haven't really seen him run until the last few days. And I was kind of struck by him today and just the quickness that he has. Nebraska's got a lot of different attributes among its running backs.
Right.
He has, him and Ramir Johnson have a kind of, spring in their step that you don't see from everyone in that position.
Yeah, it's hard to find anybody in the running back room who really, really jumps out at you. So you're looking for these specific things. And I noticed the same thing with Mekhi Nelson too. Like I think there's going to be probably specific roles for 4 or 5 different guys in that room this year. So that makes a lot of sense.
All right. We've got to get back to the stadium so we can hear from Garrett McGuire today. I know we're going to hear from, I believe, EJ Barthel.
Okay.
And we're also going to hear from Janiron Bonner, Gabe Irvin, and the aforementioned Isaiah Nayor.
Slot receiver Janiron Bonner, by the way.
Yes.
That looked interesting.
Another matchup problem, along with Carter Nelson. Like that's a 1-2 punch at slot receiver that you don't really want to see if you're UTEP. So,
all right, that's it. We're out of here. One more reminder before we go, though. A thank you first for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. Also, if you want more college football, go check out the Locked On College Football podcast. Plenty of stuff as they get ready for the season over there. Spencer's got you covered. That is the Locked On College Football podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.